Hey, I had somebody in my community post ask what the Christian right is like in Brazil. So this is my video talking about that. um, you know, down here they're you know very emotional, and charismatic. Um, a lot of them call themselves, and in the country, calls them, refers to them as a group of as evangelicals, and that's really ironic because um, you know in Portuguese, the gospel, that term is o evangelho, and evangelicals are, that term is evangelho. So it's ironic because yeah, they say they're evangelicals and people refer them as the evangelicals, but yet you never hear them giving the gospel because most of them don't know it because they're works based, the vast majority of them, and um, they also have gospel music down here, and there's no gospel in that either. It's just ecumenical stuff that people say that even a Mormon wouldn't disagree with, just so they could sell more CDs and stuff, similar to what they do up in the states, and the Hillsong group from, I don't know if it was New Zealand or Australia, but they seem to be popular here too. That group, but and for some reason, Paul Washer, because there's Calvinists here too, and Paul Washer seems to be popular, and there's a lot of the Church of God Pentecostal denominations very big here in Brazil. I think there's more Pentecostals now in Brazil than actually the U.S. And that's something that came out of the U.S. and was imported here, unfortunately. And I do have a theory that if something stupid isn't already in a country, that don't worry, the U.S. is going to import it to you. That if it's not already in your country, and it comes from somewhere else, it pretty much comes from the United States. Like that's just something I've noticed. And the Christian right down here in Brazil, um, somehow, I don't know how it started, but somehow they yoked up with the Christian right up in the U.S. And now they're even having like CPAC stuff here in Brazil, where they network, and now a lot of the political positions are becoming similar, and in Brazil, the Christian right thinks that basically the current president is God's man to fight against communism and uh, you know protect the evangelicals here, and um, yeah, it seems like in the United States that's a similar story, right? Up in the states, you the right wing over there thinks that Trump's God's man protecting them against communism, and so here also like the Christian right, um, of course, right? When they get political, they get ecumenical. All right, so you have, Pentecostal hanging out with a Calvinist, and you know, also there's a bunch of mega churches here and stuff, and then there's more like the conservative type Roman Catholics, um, and they really do use religion as a prop, like they probably do in every other country that has a religious right wing. And for example, I remember there was this big photo shoot. I think it was like a couple of years ago, where the president of Brazil walked into this mega church, and the camera, zoomed in on him like walking and stuff, and there's like a bunch of photographers, like almost like how like the paparazzi treat Hollywood people or like famous people in Europe and stuff. Where they're in the church, like where he like kneels down to supposedly pray like in the church, and there's just like 30 paparazzi type reporter, like actual like supposedly reporters, just flashing all this photography for him, to just get like the perfect picture of him, supposedly praying at this church. Oh, that's so spiritual. No, it's not. And supposedly recently, his wife at the Brazilian equivalent to the White House, Palácio do Planalto, in Brasilia. She led like some prayer thing and did like I think like a vigil or something like that for a bunch of candles, and that's all show. That's all show. Just because the elections are next month, and they're trying to rile up the right wing into voting for them, and it's pretty pathetic, and it's really sad that a lot of people here too. I mean, it happens unfortunately everywhere in the world, where as long as some politician says the name Jesus, that they just fall for them. Like they can just be totally lying, they can be horrible, or they can just be a complete fraud. And it kind of reminds me like when Trump was holding like an upside down Bible after he broke up some protest in D.C. I forgot what year that was. I don't know if that was last year, a couple of years ago. And I remember hearing about the right wing up there just eating it up, and it's like he can't even hold the Bible like not upside down. I mean, and they're just fawning over this guy, and then here in Brazil, they're just the Christian right. They're just terrified of Brazil becoming like Venezuela, and they're just convinced that Bolsonaro is like their savior, and something. To me, it's very creepy. His middle name is Messias, and Messias is Messiah in Portuguese, and we know that Messiah means Christ. Now, obviously he didn't name himself that, but I mean, somebody in his family started that, right? Like that's his legal middle name, right? But even creepier is that the religious right And, and it's strange that he doesn't change that. I mean, because the only Messiah is Jesus Christ, right? But look, even creepier is that the religious right in Brazil, and there's like a bunch of like, mega pastors from the mega churches and stuff. Um, sometimes they'll have them at the churches and stuff, um, but they'll introduce him, like they'll say his full name, and they'll really like play up uh, his middle name as being Messias, and that's creepy to me. Um, and another weird example of just in the Capitol. I forgot how long ago this was. I think this was like within the last 2 months. There was like this March for Jesus rally. Like that's basically what it was called, but in Portuguese, obviously. Um, and like these mega pastors like encourage their congregations to show up and stuff. And when they got there, basically what it turned into, and what it was orchestrated to be, was actually just like a political rally for excuse me, supporting the current president for re-election, Bolsonaro. And so yeah, there's like a lot of idolatry and the Christian right respects the Trump Tard MAGA group up there so much, and almost like looks up to them. It's weird that up in the United States, I think it's more diverse in all the denominations. But here, I would think it's basically the biggest ones. It's the Roman Catholic Church, Roman Catholicism. The Church of God Pentecostal denomination, and then like Calvinists. I think those are like the three main groups. And in the end, like, thank God there seems to be less actual political violence here than in Brazil. I mean, than up in the United States. But there's still some violence here. Political violence. And but yeah, it's a mess. And, a lot of evangelicals here that don't know the gospel, they basically think that they're supposed to live like a clean life and tell people about Jesus. But basically, when they tell people about Jesus, they're basically, preaching about their changed life and how they don't drink anymore or something, or quit gambling. And that's not the gospel. And, there's also a bunch of charismatic scams, right? Like, two that I remember. This was, I think, 4 or 5 years ago. One was where some mega church in Brazil was, they set up an MMA type ring in the church on like a Saturday or something, and did like basically like an MMA fight for Jesus, where they were gonna like raise money and do it for donate it to, I forgot what, but they probably just pocketed it. But I mean, imagine that, like two guys beating each other for an inch of their life, you know, in a church, and that they think that's gonna like supposedly glorify God and stuff. So that's weird and disgusting, frankly. And also, I remember there's this scam where these Pentecostal weirdos did like almost like this infomercial type ad where they were selling this rainbow colored broom. I don't remember the price, but I remember thinking, wow, that's incredibly overpriced. But they were selling this broom where, you know, had these rainbow. I forgot the term, but like the part of the broom that actually sweeps, the bristles, yeah. Yeah, I think it's called bristles. Anyway, so that part was rainbow color, and they were talking about how, you know, they try to relate it to like Noah and the flood, but how like now the rainbow of the broom is like God's promise that He's gonna like protect you from devils, and that like you could buy this broom, and in the infomercial they show like the main Pentecostal, heretic preacher, plus like I think it was like 3 or 4 of his buddies, where they walk up some hill with the brooms, and they're saying they're gonna like ask God's blessing on the brooms, and they have like kind of like a creepy seance slash prayer up on top of this hill, asking God to supposedly bless these brooms so that they could sell it to people, so that those people could use those brooms to sweep out devils from their homes. Okay. It's messed up. I mean, it's messed up because it's work, and it's manipulative and garbage, and just trying to scam people, make money off of them. And also there's this thing called macumba, which is like kind of like voodoo, I guess. I mean, I don't want to know too much about it, but and Roman Catholics historically, when they went to other places, and especially in the Americas, you know, and some Roman Catholics like have talked about this, and they take great pride in it, about how they they they're they brag about basically how good they are at like mixing somebody's beliefs with their beliefs and combining them and stuff. So also here in Brazil, you have people that like would say that they're Christians, especially people who are Catholics, but they also say that they're Christians, but they also do some macumba stuff that's super weird, which is kind of like a voodoo type witchcraft thing, and that's bizarre. I mean, this video's almost 20 minutes, but I hope I hope you found what you were looking for here, asking me about what the Christian right's like in Brazil. It's heretical, dominionistic, mostly believing in replacement theology, and they try to when they read stuff in the Old Testament about Israel, a lot of times they try to apply it to themselves here in Brazil, kind of like how people in America do. And Paul Washer's popular here for some reason. Like out of the American Calvinists, I found him to be the most popular down here. I don't know why. He probably visited here before. And then you have the charismatic Pentecostal types, and but yeah, it's kind of Kingdom Nowy and dysfunctional. And what blows my mind is not just here, but like how a lot of Christians like worldwide, like if you were to tell them how many of the Protestants are just aching to go back to Mama, right? The Roman Catholic Church, and how that's disgusting. But when they were established, they never really broke ties with her. They just watched her from a distance, yearning to go back. Like they were always looking back toward her. You know what I mean? And that was always wrong, because they thought that they could reform the Roman Catholic. Like that was stupid on its face. They all used to think that the Roman Catholic Church at one point used to be good and got corrupted, and no, it was always corrupted. It was always heretical. But but basically what I'm saying about this is like, all these people that say they're evangelical Protestants, and how they're just fawning over this Roman Catholic who's the president. It just reminds me also of, all the Roman Catholics in the Supreme Court of the United States, and how all these Protestants in the United States, these Republicans, wanted so badly to appoint these judges to the Supreme Court. And they appointed a bunch of Roman Catholics. So, they're not... Protestantism is basically Catholic light, unfortunately. And they're just dying to go back to Mama. Anyways, take care, bye.